like to introduce and welcome everybody actually. So a warm welcome to everyone. Welcome to Cryo. Welcome to the Big Variable series. We're excited to have, a line of some eminent tech personalities from India today, right here at Cryo. They're going to talk to you about their experiences and also give you some advice, career advice on what it means to make a successful career in tech. We'll also talk about the different roles in tech and many other things, right? Our first speaker for the day is Srini. And Srini is the site lead of Grab. He has the engineering team there. And he's had a past stint at Flipkart as well as Amazon. And he's here to talk to us today about the evolving role of a software developer, right? What it used to be in the past, what it is today, and where we are headed, right? And more importantly, how do you navigate this transition and stay relevant as a developer, right? So Srini, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Ajay.
So Srini, let's go through your journey. Do you want to quickly take us through, your tech journey so far, and also introduce yourself more formally to the participants?
Sure. I didn't think you were going to ask me all about that and then try to find out where I had actually done well or messed up, Ajay. I didn't know that. I should have been more prepared about that. Hey, so my name is Srinivas Chamarthy. I am the head of engineering at Grab and the site lead as well. My career started off as a junior developer in a B2B e-commerce company that was also into set-top boxes. So I was working on some internet e-commerce way back then. And then also went into dabbling into set-top boxes. In fact, one of the first set-top boxes that was there for the Sun TV network was actually the software was built here in India, and I was a part of that team. So the fun part about it was whenever there was something like a rain or when the connection was not good, that was the only time you could see my work. So I would call my mom over and tell her to run. Hey, see, the set-top box isn't working. That part is what I've done, So it's a very great way to show what my work was, but something that I was pretty darn proud of.
Sure.
I then moved over to the US, worked in companies like Accenture. I also worked at Cisco for a good 7-8 years. And then moved over to India with Amazon, then went on to Flipkart, and now I'm with Grab. So that's been a small part of my journey. And I was looking to just emphasize on the part where I said junior developer. And that was where I was a fresher right out of college, went in. And in fact, interestingly, I had 3 offers at that point in time. One of them was this startup that was hardly a 16% startup at that point in time. And then there were these big companies like the TCS, the Wipro. And at that point in time, there was a company called VisualSoft, which was taken over by somebody else. So I actually got an offer from them as well.
All right.
But I chose to go into a place where it'll help me to get a lot more learning, expose me to a lot more things. And that's where my journey started.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, we're going to talk all about that. What do you do at Grab?
Oh, if you don't show this to my boss, I don't know yet.
That's a good job description to have, right?
I know. That's something that I keep figuring out every day.
Sure.
The fun part at Grab is, we've got so many different challenges, so many different verticals that we are in, that every day is a constant new challenge that comes in that keeps me on my toes. And hence the thing about I don't know what I'm doing, primarily because it's not just one thing. We are into payments, and which is a part of which I'm responsible for. And we are also into few verticals like invest, into lending, into, of course, the cab, the Grab taxi. We are into Grab food, Grab
Mhm.
Mart. So there's so many of these verticals out
Right.
there, and there's so much of a constant learning for me when I go in and talk to somebody from a different team or from our own teams. So
Sure.
it's pretty fun, and yeah, I do think that's really what I'm doing. I'm trying to learn.
Yeah, I mean, Grab actually, it's almost like many companies within one conglomerate, right?
Right.
If you think about, there's taxi and food and delivery, and then there's this finance and investing and lending, and somehow you guys have put all of these things together and made one company and one face of it. Uh, sure. So you are leading. You're the site lead here, head of engineering at Grab. So how do you go about thinking about the different roles and the different individuals that come together to form a company like Grab and build the products that Grab is very popular and famous for?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. So, one of the big things that we look for is really our own way of looking at how a person would fit in culturally.
Mhm.
That coupled with the fact that we are always looking at a team and not an individual is all about how the first step comes in. And if that works out fine, and if we are saying that this candidate, over every round when we are looking at the candidate, we are looking culturally, how do they fit, how do they actually work with us, how will they be in our own environment. We have the 4H principles at Grab: heart, honor, humility, and the way we are in terms of each of those principles is what defines us as Grab.
Mhm.
And that aspect of it is very important for us as we take every candidate to see are they culturally fit and are they technically fit as well. Of course, both of them are important, but the longevity and the way you would actually succeed, I believe, would certainly be being the right cultural fit.
Right. And the different kind of roles that you guys have
Hey, I can't hear you.
job function.
I,
Like
I
looking
lost you for a second there, Ajay. Could you repeat what you were saying?
you want to talk about how these roles are. All right. Yeah, I mean, basically, I was talking about different roles in a company like Grab. Especially in the engineering team, right? So there could be software engineers, senior software engineers that track. There's also SDET, software developers in test. There's also test engineers, probably. Do you want to walk us through the engineering org and what kind of different roles are actually there?
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. We form squads, we form pods, we form agile methodologies, teams in some way, right? But let me go to the question that you had talked about. There are various roles that we have, and what I'm going to say is just certainly not going to be a complete kind of roles that we have here. But even if you start off from the engineering background, we have the front end engineers, and they would be both for iOS and Android, so separate engineers. We'll have full stack engineers who would go complete full front end, back end, and everything. We have pure backend engineers as well, who might be maybe the Go developers and who might actually be good on the cloud. We also have, automation QA engineers. We have manual QA engineers. We also have uh, user experience engineers. We have UI engineers that we were talking about in terms of front end. So there are various roles that we have. And when we are looking at a team, it starts off from when we are looking at our pod, how self-sufficient can that pod be? And that pod could then contain whether it be PMs or front-end engineers, back-end engineers, DBAs, it could be SREs, who are the system reliability engineers, the DevOps or the PSCs that you might want to call,
Right.
or all of them will actually form one pod so that they
Mhm.
are self-sufficient in what they are trying to in what they are trying to achieve in that project.
Right.
So, just in engineering, there might be so many of these different roles, and all of
Mhm.
them cater to a certain specific set of what we need to get the project done and the pod to be successful.
Okay, that's great. I mean, that's a varied set of roles. Um, and I'm sure, the way you're thinking about it in terms of pods, where you create one unit and then you can sort of try and replicate this across different features or even products that you're building, and have some sort of a management structure within, right? Um, how are the roles of the individual engineers kind of evolving? I mean, if you want to take us through some sort of, what it was like maybe 10 years ago versus how you are thinking today about engineering and engineering roles and how these teams are organized. You want to talk a little bit about some of those things?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
In fact, it's very interesting in terms of maybe from where I came in from. So when we started off at that point in time, there was VC++, C++, C, and Java had started off a few years before. With that came in the whole JEE paradigm, and we had the entire, the servlets world come in.
Hmm.
At that time, servlets was Java code that needed to be, compiled,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the UI was put into that. And boy, was it messy! You typed in double quotes, you had to put in all of those escape characters and put in those
Sure.
backslashes in the HTML, all embedded inside that servlet.
Right.
Uh, it was one heck of a journey to kind of get that out there. One simple thing that doesn't work, and you will see that the servlet isn't responding. So it was very interesting at that point in time how we were working off of that.
Mhm.
And then came this whole Apache Tomcat and JSP that came out, and slowly there was this separation that was starting off between the back end and the front end. Of course, I should point out that at that time Visual Basic was also popular with doing these desktop applications, because most of
Right.
them were desk-based applications, and Windows, of course, was ruling the roost in terms of the operating systems.
Mhm.
And from there came on where the enterprise software started happening.
Right.
Then there was these in-house enterprise teams that would come in, and they would work more on JSPs because it was so much more easier to do.
Mhm.
And then it would go into different versions of it. And if you
Right.
see how that journey came in, each one of them was an evolution based on something that happened. Servlets, it was very difficult to do the UI, and JSP was much more easier to do the UI.
Right.
But then
Sure,
there was
sure.
so much of CSS that came in, the cross-site scripting, the security hacks. So then it started to evolve into something a little more in terms of security aspects, and from where it went in. And the backend developers for the servlet, that started diverging as well. If you look at the journey of
Right.
that, um, there was a bifurcation that was going off into the DBAs were anyway there, and
Mhm.
then there would be the analytics who came in as a
Sure.
new role a little later in the cycle. But the backend developers then went on to bifurcate into desk-based applications or into cloud-based developers.
Right.
And each one of these, if you see, has been something that has made that turn happen, and separate roles have started evolving, and specialities have started happening.
Right.
And now the that some of that part is also converging, where
Mhm.
we are asking more for full stack developers. We are
Mhm.
also asking for people who have a lot more of specialty in front end development. For example, we will look for iOS developers or Android developers themselves. Each one of them is for a different reason. When you're going into an iOS, you would like it to be very performant code, very small size of the library. You would like
Sure.
it to be a state where it will be very fast, so the latency is low.
Of course.
So you would like somebody who knows the iOS part really well to be actually taking care of the customer's applications. On the
Right.
same front, you would like somebody who can take care of the entire backend,
Mhm.
or the entire full stack. So you would look for somebody who's in that role as well. So there are different aspects of it, but the good part that I can see, honestly, is there's room for everyone. There's so
Right.
much, so many different streams that based on your interest, you could actually go into what kind of development you want to go into. You can go into what kind of role you would like to take. And for all of that, there is the journey that starts off from being the software developer and takes steps to go on into their career.
All right. Yeah, I guess previously, it's gone a full circle where you had to know. If you go back to those servlets, then you needed the people to actually know pretty much how to build everything end to end, and then the bifurcation into back end and front end and those specializations. And today we're coming back sort of to full stack, where you know a little bit of front end. And do you think that's also one of the reasons for that is also because having a good idea of how other teams and other areas and other functions are also working is important in order to get some sort of a customer sense, customer focus, some sort of a product sense that needs to be there in every developer today. And that is sort of becoming prominent. It's not no longer living in a shell and saying, okay, this is my area of specialization, and outside of this, go talk to this other team. You tend to be, this full stack, or a generalist is another term that is floated around these days.
Right.
So I think it's kind of coming to a full circle where again now you're in an area where you have to kind of know everything, at least a little bit about some of the other functions, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, exciting roles, right? Many interesting, challenging projects available and products being built. How do like fresh engineers starting out as software developers today, right? Or even people with say 1 to 3 years of work experience, how should they prepare for these roles? How do they prepare to succeed in these kind of roles?
Very interesting. Very interesting. You're taking me back to where I started off.
Right,
Um, Let me take a most recent example in Grab, right? Grab has a very open culture in looking to see who would want to go into what kind of a role and what their career skills that they would like to build on. The way we look at an engineer is about not what they already know, but what their interest is on, right? Um, and there's a very clear reason for that, right? When you are a developer who knows well enough with respect to algos, data structures, your programming logic, a language is not a big deal. Language is just a structure. It's just about syntax. It's just about putting it into a certain compiler versus another.
right,
And you've got so many IDEs today, whether it be Eclipse or IntelliJ or anything that you would like to use, they have all the compilers built in. Eclipse, for example, has everything from C++ to everything that you would like to use it on.
right,
So it's not really the language. Even if you look at an exam or a coding a test that you would take or a coding interview that you would go to, it's about what the result is and how well you have been able to do that. How efficient is your code? How well you're utilizing your memory. And that is the most important thing that we have to consider as a developer. How deep do I know my fundamentals when I am thinking of growing as a developer in that particular area? If I was looking at saying that I'm a developer, I should know everything. Let's say I'm talking about Go or let's say Java, then I
right,
should everything right down to the garbage collection, to the memory, to the utilization and the threads and how I can control the daemon threads, for example.
right,
And when you know that is when you are able to build on that foundation to keep taking those steps higher and higher. So today, when you look at it, there are umpteen number of people out there who might say they know Java, but when you go into the depth of it, sometimes, in fact, not even depth, just on the surface, if you ask somebody, what is the difference between a string and a string buffer, for example, would be tough for them to say how much of memory is being utilized.
right.
You know, why don't we ask this question to the group and say, what would you use? Would you use a string buffer, string builder, a string? What would you use?
Yeah,
Would something like that be a good
it's a,
answer to you?
yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you can use the chat window. Everybody listening in, use the chat window if you want to respond to that question. What would be your choice, and do you understand the difference between a string buffer, right? Okay, some people are coming, answers are coming, and everyone seems to prefer a string buffer. There are some who prefer a string builder, says Zubin, and of course, depends on use, right? Right.
It's very nice. You're pretty much right on target there. Actually,
Yeah.
the important point to note there is about the immutability of an object, right?
Right.
And uh, so it's more about how do you utilize the memory more efficiently, right? And unless you know the depths of what it is and how you can utilize it, right? There's your expertise is not going to build in. And now
Right.
let's go to the question, Ajay, that you were talking about. How do
Right.
we build our career on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, let's look at it this way. There are umpteen roles that we were talking about, and
Right.
now those were in the engineering stream. We were talking about SDET, let's say, or a front end, a full stack, a back end. Let's also take a step forward and talk about product managers,
Mm-hmm.
analysts, business analysts, or data analysts,
Right.
and expand the scope in there. Each one of those, you will see that most of them have started off as being starting off from a developer.
Sure.
They started
Yes.
off from where they have got their core logic, their core thought process, and understanding of how engineering will work. And then they have gone on to bifurcate.
Right.
There's nothing wrong in bifurcation. It's good to be a member of technical staff and a principal engineer or an architect or a manager, a product manager or a business analyst. The fundamental part is when you know your software well enough, you know your logic well enough, you're able to think, act, and grow. You'll be able to do it much, much better when
Right.
you're trying to lead teams and take them forward. Now, this is let's dwell on that a little bit more, right?
Sure.
Why would we say that it's important to go deep? The more you know your subject and you're going deeper and deeper, it's that expertise is what you're trying to build on, which becomes your foundation. And when you're talking, let's say there's these nice buzzwords, of course, things that we use a lot, but let's say AWS or GCP, and we say AWS EC2. When you have that fundamentals strong enough, you are able to understand that a lot more quickly.
Right.
You're able to catch on that much more quicker. And it's so much more easier for you to adapt as a developer from A to B to C. It doesn't have to be a language barrier or a platform barrier or a cloud barrier for that matter. And that's an important aspect of how, if you go back to what you were talking about as to how we could take our career, that would be where we need to focus on the depth and go there as much as you can
Right.
and take it from there so that you can build on that as your career progresses.
Right. Yeah, I think it reminds me of one of Peter Norvig's quote where he says, learn programming in 10 years. Don't be in a rush and go as deep as you can and try to know the intricate details of everything that you're doing. Uh, Take any language. I mean, it could be Python, it could be Java. The language is not as important as how deep you're willing to go within that language, right? Um, yeah, I mean that's I think great advice. Where going deep is definitely a differentiating factor. Not sufficient people are willing to go deep and actually know everything that they're talking about.
Right.
And the people who are willing to put in that effort are the ones that are going to come out on top over the long term. Right.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
definitely. So essentially, be curious and always keep learning as a fundamental aspect of what you would like to
Right.
build for yourself.
So another interesting question that we usually get from a lot of users is, great, these roles are all great, but then when I'm evaluating a company, how do I evaluate it? Should I look at a brand? This is a great brand, very popular company, and it doesn't matter what role I'm getting within. I should just get inside, or should they also focus on the role that the company is offering to them? And there's another vector which is interesting, which is salary, right? And that also plays a huge role. Um, I'm not saying it's not justified, but these are different things that people are evaluating when selecting a company. What advice do you have for such users and on how to select a company and what to look
Very,
for?
very, very cool point. Very cool question. If you had told me the question beforehand, I would have been a little more prepared about it. But just kidding on that.
Right.
uh, it's actually very interesting. And my personal philosophy on that has always been about choosing a place which would give me more of an exposure, give me more of a place where I could experiment and something where I could engineer things that would give me excitement. And I'll delve into that a little bit more, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that. In fact, if you could just go back to what I was talking about in my intro, I chose a smaller startup, or I chose a place where it could help me to be exposed to so many other areas that I chose that particular company. The more that company has in terms of experiences that they can give you and exposures that you can be a part of, I would say go for it. The more that you can see that the company is able to excite you about the work that you're going to do, I would say go for it. At the end of the day, let me be very clear: you or me, we have to take care of our own careers. You have to take charge of your career. And if it's an engineer, either a fresher or anybody who has experience, if I was to talk to them, I would just directly say that you are going to take charge of your career. You are responsible for it. So you choose the path wisely as well. And that essentially would be about where you are also in your career path. If you are in a stage where you're thinking, you're 1 year in, or a fresher, or 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, there are different milestones that you reach. And here is an important aspect of how I have steered my career as well. It's
Right.
more about figuring out how I would think of the future. If a fresher is thinking about it, there's what, 25, 30 years at a minimum of experience or work that they would be doing, unless you consider that some of them are going to be, an Anthony Tan, or a Sachin or Billy Bansal, who
Oh,
are
why
getting
not, right?
10, 15 years.
Right.
So it's not everybody who makes it in the first 10, 15 years. So we are talking about the 25, 30-year career. The more you can be exposed and have that experience in the first few years is the foundation that can keep building on for you. And then title, the salary, all of that keeps just coming and keeps just growing.
Right.
Don't go after, my personal advice would be not to go purely after a title, not to go purely after what somebody is selling you because of maybe a monetary gain that you're thinking of.
Right.
My personal advice would be to certainly target a place which would give you a lot more experience and exposure. And of course, Ajay, to your point, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's certainly important. So I'm not saying work for free. I'm not saying that it's that's not something that anybody should consider.
Right.
The point is that uh, if you look at your career graph, it's not about wasting or staying in a certain place which is not giving you enough exposure. It's more about that growth you would get as an engineer, And
Right.
with that will automatically come those titles and those salary hikes that you're thinking of, and it will keep growing.
Right.
And that's really where I would say, think about it as salary versus the role, and then look at the company overall and see what are the great things that they're doing, and then go for it.
Yeah, I think that's sane advice. It's along the lines that we give to many of our users as well, where we tell them, front load for learning, and the rest of it will follow. Right? If you focus on the learning earlier on, and there are different ways of getting these opportunities. Startups are great. While they're notorious for many other things, they're great for several things, right? You get to make a lot of mistakes. You grow with the company, and a lot of responsibility, and you don't have a choice. There are not enough people, and you have to take on multiple roles, wear multiple hats. All those things come at the same time. uh, and yeah, basically putting in that investment earlier on in the career on quality work and things that you're doing. Actually, let's dwell on that a little more. And what are some meaningful, career milestones that people should target to achieve? Say it's your first job, first 6 months of the job. What should you be focused on? What should you have accomplished within the first year of being in a company? First 3 years, what are some meaningful milestones that are worth achieving?
That's a tough question. I'll tell you why it's a tough question, because each person usually is in a different plane. um, it's very very obvious to some people to think, hey, he and the other person, we both were classmates, so automatically I should be getting this or I should be doing this. But everybody kind of levels off in some other state or in some other place, right? After a certain point in career, things start to level off, and it's more about you yourself and where you are, right? And that aspect of that certain aspect of where you are and recognizing that is what is very important first up. Secondly, I would say, like I was saying, be curious and learn. Always keep an open mind to learning. It's very important that the learning continues to happen. Every single day. That's the only way that would be a good mark of an engineer who's learning continuously and rapidly, and that will keep on. Nothing, no learning goes for waste. Today, you might just hear something and say, okay, threads, and I'll go read about threads, but you might not code on it today. But someday down the line, it will certainly come in use for you. You go learn about somebody who's talking about MongoDB, and you go learn about it. You don't get to use it for the next couple of years, doesn't really matter. You'll at least have that knowledge, and someday you will use it. Always keep yourself open to learning. And thirdly, I would say uh, it's kind of a different way that I would put it. My point is that try to choose or try to be in the company of a senior or somebody who can mentor you. It's always important to see and have somebody who can guide you through various steps.
Right.
uh, that helps you to put your north star. You see the mentor and you see how much they have maybe achieved. You see what you would like to do, and you keep putting that north star for yourself and keep going in that direction. That north star is very important, and it should be that the a hugely audacious thing that you would like to do, and something that's achievable not tomorrow, not 1 year down the line, but
Right.
something that'll be a 5 year, 10 year journey, and
Mhm.
that keeps making you learn and keep making you grow, and that
Right.
goal keep growing, maybe closer to you, or maybe if it's farther, then you do something more for it.
Right.
But those are three things that I would say.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I mean, some of the things that we also tell people is during our cryo uh, programs. is, look at someone who's 3 years senior to you and 5 years senior to you, as well as someone who's 10 years senior, and see who you want to be. And within the company, there's bound to be plenty of examples of people that you would want to be. And then just talk to them and find out, basically finding mentors, talk to them and find out what journey they took. And you can start following the same things, doing the same things. But then along the way, you realize, okay, you know what, I'm really interested in this other thing. And that's completely okay. You can always branch out. But at least along the way, you have some mentors, and it sort of puts you in some sort of, this is what I want to achieve. It puts you on that growth mindset. You get into that, and then you're always going from strength to strength. Right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so just a couple of more questions before to you, Srini, before we head off to the questions submitted by our users, and there's quite a few coming in. So yeah, I'll make sure we save enough time. Uh, Quickly, what about transitioning from roles? Like, we have people who start off in one particular role. Typically, they get hired on campus, and it was their placements. They got hired, they got their first offer, and then they couldn't appear for any other offer, and now they're part of a company. They couldn't crack the off-campus opportunities. But anyway, now they're inside. They want to navigate the company and see if they can transition to sort of a role of their choice. So what advice do you have to people planning these transitions, or who want to make these transitions, say, 1 year into the job, 3 years into the job, or even 5 years into the job? It could even be things like going from engineering to product management. But then I think with our audience today, I think the early career transitions are probably more relevant. Yeah.
So, are we just a clarification on the question? Are we talking about moving from role A to role B, or are we talking about moving from a company to another company, or
Uh,
what are we talking about?
I'd like to focus on the role,
Okay,
and then this target role could be in a different company. It could be within, it could be external as well.
okay,
I think a lot of things. I don't know. I mean, I'd like your opinion on that as well.
sure.
On what it works like if we have to transition. Is it better to do it within a company, or should users, I mean, people be looking beyond?
Sure, sure. Um, so yeah, it's actually uh, I would say be guided by your interest. First of all, when you're looking at which role you would like to take, right? I have this, what I've seen in my career as well. Somebody is very interested in maths.
Mhm.
Maybe they would like to go and build a chartered accountancy software or a ledger book or something that will help them to work more with numbers. Let's say
Right.
somebody is more interested in seeing and feeling happy about. By the way, that's one for me. I love seeing somebody use the things that I used to make. So I would just love seeing the customer use it and feel very elated about it.
Right.
And if you're somebody like that, maybe you would like to be a UI person. Always be driven by your passion. That's my certainly an advice I would give. Be driven by your passion and your interest, because that's what will take you. This is not a 100-meter dash. It's a marathon, and it's really a long journey for you if you're looking at 20, 30 years in front of you. And if you're trust me, if you're not doing something that you like, just imagine how difficult it would be to get out of bed every day. Uh,
Yeah.
so now when you're talking about a transition, so if you've started off on a path and you realize that you really don't like it that much, let us say, and you would like to move over, it's it's certainly not a big deal. I think what you really need to do is ensure that you understand what that role entails. You understand what it takes. So let's say you want to be a front end engineer,
Right.
and let's say you're a back end engineer. Big deal. Shouldn't be a problem at all, whether it be your company or anybody else. Today, there are so many learning opportunities, learning channels, and Cryo is a perfect example of that. with the kind of micro learning that you have and that to practical hands-on learnings that you give, it's so much more easier for somebody to get it, experiment, understand, and then use that in resumes to show that they can actually go forward. And that kind of a learning has to be there if you're trying to change a role, because there will be a bar for every company when you're trying to look at to say you want a front-end engineer or you want a back-end engineer. There would be some kind of a bar that they'll have because they just can't take somebody who doesn't know anything of that, right?
Right.
So you'll have to understand what the role requires, whether it be a product manager or whether it be a backend engineer, and you need to understand that, learn from it, and then target it.
Right.
Don't do it in a hurry. You want to do it, take the next 6 months, 1 year, ensuring that you go on that path.
Right.
Ensuring that you're taking that aspect of what is required and then you're building onto it. Uh, it's it's not that it's difficult. It's just that it's a lot. It's a little bit more work that you have to do to ensure that
Right.
you are able to transition.
Right.
Think of a train, right? When they have to move tracks, it doesn't happen automatically. There's a whole collaboration that happens. There's a lineman who actually changes the track, and then the driver goes as if they were supposed to go on that track all the time. The passengers don't even know about it.
Right.
If you take that example and you just work on that, right? It's more about understanding what each role wants, delve into it, learn, and then take the role change.
Right.
Usually companies are willing to give that, and at least the companies I've been in, and specifically Grab, we are certainly willing to give that kind of a role change opportunity, as
Sure.
long as you are able to demonstrate some of those things that you need. And if it is within Grab, for example, you want to change roles, then I'm sure there are certain other aspects of, let's say, training, and those that are kind of worked out between the developer and the manager, and you can actually move your role when it is appropriate. So I
Right.
don't think it's a problem to move, and I don't think it's something that you should never consider in your career. It's always about trying to figure out what you would like to do and make sure that you work towards it. It's something
Right.
that you need to put some time into.
Good stuff. I think that's great advice. Take it slow. Make sure you know exactly what you're doing. Talk to people who are in the target role. Maybe get some get to know the role better, and then work with your company, or even outside if you want to pursue learning opportunities, so that you build up the skills in order to make and affect that transition. Right. Okay. It's a quick summary that I tried anyway. So I think we should go to questions. A lot of excited questions. People are here with a lot of questions. So let me just go really quickly. Sorry, I think I shared the wrong. Just give me 1 second.
Sure. So I'll just look at my screen for the questions for the slider.
Just give me 1 second. I think it's giving me
Sure.
wrong. Okay. This. Okay, here we go. Okay, great. So can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can.
All right. So we'll go popular first, most upvotes, and then last 5 minutes or so we can look at the more recent questions, so we get to answer everybody's queries.
Sure.
So, do freshers need to have strong product development skills or problem-solving skills? Grab as an example, but I think you can speak more generally about expectations from a fresher in some of these companies.
Usually, in any interview, they're usually looking at the problem-solving skills. And a variation of that solving skills happens between any role that you look at, whether it be take PSC or an SRE or an SDET or a backend developer, a front-end developer, or a product manager. There are different aspects of the problem solving that are given. Some of it might be in code, some of it might be in logic, some of them might be a verbal communication. But problem solving in general, the more stronger you are and the more adept you are at problem solving is what makes you that much more stronger as you keep going forward, irrespective of the role that you are in.
Sure. I mean, great. So the next question is, starting a career as a full stack engineer in a services based company, right? Can this cause any difficulty in switching to product based companies in the future?
Good question. Service-based companies or product-based companies, right? It's more about you. I would, without hesitation, say that when you are at a stage where, or like we talked about, you're going deep. You're able to get to that stage where you are, a known expert. People look up to you. You have those experiences and exposures. It really shouldn't be that much of a problem to switch or to move. Uh, One of the reasons why these things come up is because in the long run, what has happened is when people don't go deep, there is a sort of a thing that says, oh, maybe these people won't be a fit because they might not have the depth. Uh,
Right.
but hey, look at some of these big names who are school dropouts and have still made it big. It's not because it was just out of the blue. It was because they knew something in depth. And if you are able to have that in depth into whichever area, language, particularly if you would ask me, it would be problem solving, data structures, algorithms. Uh, there will be no stopping you. I can be pretty sure about that. I think it's more about how deep you can go and how well you are able to understand those topics and get deep into that, and
Right.
how you can apply it, and
Right.
then it'll be great for you, I'm sure.
Right. So to the person who asked the question, I guess, uh, regardless of whether you're in a services, if you're working on the right projects, and you're going pretty deep and not very superficially, then you are setting yourself up for success, and the transition can happen. Right. All right. There are questions about like how long is the software field if you're genuinely interested, and what's the roadmap and different options that are available for a software developer and the decisions that they might have to make during the course of their career.
That's a really nice question. Uh, I don't know how I would define it. Well, how long is a software field, huh? So
Srini is thinking, okay, it's been more than 20 years and I'm still here. So,
just about 20. But I was just thinking of the mentors that I've had, or my own, the people that I look up to, whether it be, uh, you know, uh, whether it be my ex-managers or somebody whom I've looked up to. Uh, it's about, it's just about how, experience puts you into those different exposures that we were talking about. And um, I, I mean, without naming names or anything, because there's so many that I can think of right now. 30 years, 40 years is not a surprise at all. People whom I know who had at least 30 years experience have also gone and done startups, because they know a particular field so well, and they are just taking things forward. I don't think I can define that. And to be honest, I think as long as that learning that I was talking to you about is happening, I don't think there's any bound to any career, because I think right now everybody's just looking at how much of experience can help them to go forward.
right. Okay, that's great. Any particular technology stacks that are more popular that people should focus on versus, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'll let you go ahead and make that. And
Eh, why
especially
don't
with
you
the buzzwords, the AI and ML, the favorite buzzwords of the day, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, somehow, one of the things that we've always seen was that buzzwords are very difficult to keep up to, right? I
Mhm.
mean, just keep going deep, right? I mean, that's what I would say. But to the specific question about Python or Java, again, there are certain specifics to it, right? And if you're looking to become more towards the machine learning or data aspect of it, then Python might be the Python or R might be the right one to go.
Mhm.
If you're looking more of as enterprise, maybe Go or Java would be the way to go.
Mhm.
And if you're thinking about let's say embedded systems, then it would be C language for sure,
Right.
right? Or VC++, if that might be something else. And if you're looking at these things, let's say you're looking at front end, then it could be React. Or then if you're looking at what Google has come up with, it could be Flutter. And if you're looking at, let's say, a little more full stack, it would be Node. So they're separate. There are, since we've talked about different roles, there are also different aspects of what the software could be that you would like to work upon or learn. But nevertheless, I would say, like I was saying, problem solving, data structures, algorithms, and then you take one language and go deep. I don't think you need to worry about which language per se that you need to be in. It's just going to just be a syntactical difference. Everything else
Right.
would be.
Yeah, I think also what happens a lot in a long career, 10 plus years, 20 plus years, is that you will end up working on different technologies, different languages along the way, and being flexible and having that, skill to adapt to any language based on what Srini was touching upon: strong problem solving skills, good design skills. Then a language is just a language, right? It's You're expressing the same thing in a different language.
Let me
Um,
just kind of just interject that for
Sure,
just
sure,
Najay, if you don't mind.
sure. Please.
Um, yeah, I don't know if it might be of interest, but let me just tell you where I come in from. I started with C, went into C++, VC++, Visual Basic, Java, Enterprise Java, and I was certified in the Microsoft certifications. I had done SQL developer certifications, which meant I knew SQL as well. VC++ certifications. I was a Basic certified developer. I cleared my Sun certified Java programmer certification. I'm an Oracle certified Java enterprise architect. I also went in and did my PMP, which is the project management professional
All right.
mine.
Yeah.
So it's more about love of language and understanding and staying close to a language. So it's not about a particular language or not. It's in fact I went in and did some UML, XML. So it's more about having that entire aspect of understanding where it is. And I would just say. I have gone into quite a few languages myself, and I just think
Right.
I would love it if you can do the same. It'll just be a love of a language.
All right. Any thoughts on startups versus big companies? Pros and cons of choosing a startup as your first job.
Uh, Again, it just depends on what kind of exposure you're going to get. And if the startup, the only problem is that when people are looking at it, they might not be looking at what is the exposure. They might be looking at certain other aspects of a role, a title, or maybe a salary, and that might, skew your decision a little bit more.
Mhm.
I would love it that you're looking at the role and what exactly you're going to do in there and the exposure you're going to get.
Right.
And that said, startups like Grab have so many such opportunities, and we are constantly hiring. So it always is a place where you can actually go in and put in. or take Flipkart, for example, the kind of exposure that you get is it's all very, very different, right?
Right.
So I wouldn't say a startup or a particular enterprise. For example, Microsoft is somebody I really like, and some company where I have really good respect for. And those are, or whether it's Apple for that matter, right? Which pretty much quite a few of you might have a lot of interest in as well,
Right.
including me, by the way. So it's just about just understanding what is the role that you'll be getting into,
Right.
and what kind of excitement it will give you
Mhm.
as a company. And I think there's no one thing. It's more about ensuring that you are getting that learning that we were talking about every day.
All right. Yeah, I think we have time for maybe one or two questions, and then we can wrap up what I think has been a very insightful discussion. Um, any reflections on the current market and what developers can do to stay relevant and sort of upskill during this time? Finding a job is tough. Companies have tightened their budgets as well as hiring requirements. So, any thoughts and advice, on how to navigate this particular phase?
Great question. I think you used the word already, Ajay, in your question about relevance, right?
Right.
I think making sure that you are able to learn, go deep, stay relevant to the market. You're able to go maybe participate in different, maybe open hackathons or things of that, or go do a few certifications. I usually don't worry about the certification per se, but I believe very strongly that the path to certification means that you're going to go deeper enough and you're going to learn the language. So whether you get certified in the end or not is not the point. It's more about going in deep and understanding that, right? So trying to do that, and also maybe working for NGOs, helping
Okay, I think we might have lost Shini.
those would be
Okay,
where,
he's back.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, I
you
think we
able to
lost
hear
you
me?
there for,
No?
I think we lost you there for a few seconds, actually, about maybe 10, 15 seconds. Yeah.
I'll just
So, so guys, I'm trying to figure out if it is my internet connection or if we're having trouble with connecting to Srini. Okay, I think he did drop off. So, am I audible? Can you guys hear me clearly? Okay, great. All right, great. Yeah, let's give Srini a few minutes. He might return. Uh, well, I think we covered most of the ground. There are a lot of questions here, and I've had a chat with Srini before the webinar. We will summarize these questions and send it to him, and he said he's willing to actually respond to those questions, and then we can share them back with you. Okay. So if you have given us your email addresses, then I think we will be able to get it. Okay, so Srini is back. Um, and he's muted. So let me go ahead and unmute you, Srini. Just give me 1 second.
hey,
Okay.
sorry about that.
No
Had a bit
issues.
of a
Yeah,
drop, I think.
yeah, yeah,
So I don't know if you got what I was saying, but
yeah.
I was talking about NGOs and education
Right.
institutions. Were you able to catch that, Ajay?
Yes, yes. I think we heard it clearly till then. Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So Srini, I think I think we've covered most of the questions. Any parting thoughts? Anything you'd like to share?
Um, take charge of your career. Learn. That's your biggest, singlest way that you can actually grow. That would be the simplest way I would put it.
Okay, that's great. Yes, that is crisp, and I think all of the listeners here today, they are looking forward to this. Probably most of them are in the formative phase of their career, and I'm sure they've learned a lot and got a very interesting perspective from you today. So yeah, thanks a lot, Srini. Thank you very much. I've promised everybody that we'll summarize some of the questions that we could not get into, and then we'll share it with you. And if you want to, share some responses based on that, then we can go ahead and spread it to all the people who attended the talk today.
Sure, sure. Thanks so much.
All,
I love
all
being here.
right. Yeah. Thank you very much.